Ethan Miller had always thought that his life was predictable. He had grown up in a small town in the Midwest, surrounded by familiar routines, friends, and a family that expected him to settle into a normal life. But deep down, he knew that he wanted more than ordinary. The invitation to visit Zathera, a planet known for its advanced alien civilizations, was the opportunity of a lifetime. When the chance came to observe an alien royal wedding, he accepted immediately. Though he had no idea how much it would change his life, the journey to Zathera was long and unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. Traveling through the void of space gave him a sense of both insignificance and exhilaration. He watched stars streak past as the spacecraft hummed quietly, feeling a thrill he couldn't explain. He thought about all the times he had wondered what life was like beyond Earth, and now he was finally getting a glimpse of it. The excitement kept him awake, though he had to constantly remind himself to rest. For what awaited him on Zathera would require alertness. When the spacecraft entered Zathera's atmosphere, Ethan pressed his face to the window. The planet glowed with colors that he couldn't quite name, hues shifting across the landscape like liquid light. Towering cities stretched toward the sky, structures that seemed alive, moving subtly as if breathing. At first, he was overwhelmed, unsure of where to look. Everywhere he turned, something new caught his eye. The beauty of the alien world was nothing like he had imagined. Upon landing, Ethan was greeted by an alien named Terran, who had been assigned as his guide. Terran's skin shimmered faintly, and his eyes glowed with a soft light, reflecting the ambient colors of the surroundings. Despite their differences, Terran spoke with warmth, his gestures friendly. He explained the customs of Zathera in detail, guiding Ethan through the bustling streets and explaining the significance of each ritual he witnessed. Ethan noticed immediately how different everything was. The aliens moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural, yet natural at the same time. Their clothing shimmered with intricate designs, and the air around them seemed to hum with energy. Ethan tried to take it all in, but he realized quickly that understanding this society would take time. He kept his questions respectful, learning when to speak and when to observe. Terran often chuckled at his careful attention. Impressed by the humans' desire to truly understand, the wedding itself was unlike any celebration Ethan had ever seen. The central plaza of the city was decorated with floating lights and flowing fabrics that seemed to defy gravity. Music filled the air, but it wasn't music like he knew. It was a symphony of tones that vibrated in harmony with the surroundings, creating a feeling of unity among all who were present. Aliens moved in coordinated patterns, their movements both elegant and precise. Ethan watched in awe, realizing that every detail had meaning. From the colors used to the position of each participant, despite being a guest, Ethan couldn't help but notice the Princess Leora. She stood apart from the crowd, radiating a calm confidence that drew people to her. Her movements were graceful, yet purposeful, and there was a kindness in her eyes that seemed to look beyond appearances. When she caught his gaze, Ethan felt a strange sense of recognition, as if somehow she could see past the differences between their worlds. He quickly looked away, reminding himself that he was only an observer. Throughout the festivities, Ethan found himself invited to participate in small customs. At first, he was hesitant, unsure of what was expected, but with Terran's guidance, he joined in, learning to mimic the gestures and respond to the rhythms. The aliens watched him closely, curious about this human who moved differently yet with sincere effort. Ethan realized that in his mistakes, he was learning and connecting. Each attempt, each small success, was a step toward understanding a culture that seemed impossible to fully grasp. As the day passed, Ethan began to notice something surprising. The aliens seemed to admire certain qualities he hadn't considered important before: curiosity, courage, and the willingness to try despite uncertainty. In one moment, a ceremonial puzzle was presented, a test of strategy and insight. Humans might have struggled to understand the alien logic, but Ethan approached it with intuition and imagination. He succeeded, not through force or speed, but by thinking differently. The applause that followed was subtle but genuine, and for the first time, Ethan felt that his humanity was not a limitation, but a strength. During a quieter moment, he spoke with Leora for the first time. She asked him simple questions about Earth and humans, but there was a depth to her interest that caught him off guard. He found himself talking about his family, his small town, and the things that made life meaningful. She listened intently, her expression thoughtful. Ethan realized that despite the vast differences between their worlds, they shared a sense of wonder, a desire to understand and connect. That moment stayed with him, echoing in his mind as the festivities continued. By evening, the celebration had moved to a grand hall illuminated by soft, floating lights. Aliens of all ages moved gracefully in intricate dances, their motions synchronized yet free. Ethan watched from the sidelines, feeling both out of place and deeply included. Taryn nudged him gently, pointing out small gestures that conveyed respect and connection. Ethan followed, doing his best to mirror the movements, feeling a sense of accomplishment when the aliens acknowledged his efforts. The night grew late, but Ethan could not tear himself away. He wandered through the gardens outside the hall, marveling at the way the alien flora responded to touch and presence. Bioluminescent flowers opened as he passed, and delicate streams of light traced his steps. He thought about how humans often overlooked simple beauty, focused on achievements and progress, while the Zitherans lived in harmony with their world. It made him reflect on what it truly meant to be human. He felt a sense of pride mixed with humility. As he returned to the hall, he saw Leora once more. This time, she approached him with a smile, asking for his thoughts on the day's events. Ethan shared honestly, speaking about the music, the dances, and the intricate rituals. He admitted how much he had learned and how much he admired the Zitheran way of life. She nodded, and for a brief moment, it felt as though they were no longer just observer and princess, but two beings trying to bridge the distance between their worlds before the night ended. The king, Arian, gave a speech honoring all who had participated in the celebration. He spoke of unity, of respect for differences, and of the importance of understanding. When he mentioned the human guest, Ethan felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. The king's words hinted at recognition, though Ethan could not yet grasp the full meaning. He realized that in this alien world, humans had something unique to offer. Even if he had not fully understood what it was yet, as Ethan prepared to rest for the night, he stood by a window overlooking the city. The lights shimmered in patterns he could not name, the music of the celebration still echoing faintly in the distance. He thought about the day, about the connections he had made, and about the princess who had looked at him with interest and respect. He felt a spark of something unfamiliar, anticipation perhaps, or the beginning of a life he had never imagined. Ethan understood one thing clearly. He was no longer just a visitor. The world of Zithera had already begun to change him, opening his eyes to possibilities he had never considered. And though he did not yet know what the future held, he felt certain that this journey would be unlike any other he had ever taken. He closed his eyes, letting the sounds and lights of Zithera lull him into a restless, excited sleep, unaware that the path before him would soon lead to choices he could never have imagined. Ethan woke the next morning with a sense of curiosity that wouldn't let him rest. He had slept in the guest chambers provided by the royal family, a room that seemed to glow faintly from the walls themselves. Even in sleep, the colors had shifted, creating patterns that felt alive. As he rubbed his eyes, he thought about the previous day of the ceremony, the music, the dances, and the brief moments when he had felt that connection with Leora. Everything about Zithera fascinated him, and he was determined to explore it fully. Tane arrived shortly after, carrying a small tray of food that smelled unfamiliar but delightful. Ethan greeted him warmly, eager to begin the day's adventures. Taryn explained that the morning would be spent touring the city and learning more about Zitheran life. Ethan followed, taking careful steps to observe and absorb everything. The streets were alive with activity vendors selling glowing fruits, children playing in ways he had never seen, and citizens moving in harmony with the flowing architecture. Each detail seemed purposeful, as if the world itself had a rhythm as they walked. Taryn pointed out buildings and landmarks, explaining their significance. Ethan noticed the alien technology woven seamlessly into daily life. Vehicles hovered silently above the ground, powered by energy sources that Ethan could not comprehend. Gardens floated in midair, streams of water defying gravity in intricate patterns. Yet despite the advanced technology, the people treated their world with reverence. They did not dominate it. They lived alongside it. Ethan felt a mixture of awe and envy. Realizing how humans often struggled to balance progress with care for their environment, the tour led them to a market filled with strange, colorful creatures and produce. Ethan marveled at the variety of foods, some of which changed colors or emitted gentle warmth when touched. Taryn explained how each plant and animal had a role in the ecosystem, a balance maintained for generations. Ethan picked up a small fruit that glowed softly in his hand, curious. He bit into it cautiously and was surprised by the sweet, complex flavor. The simple act of tasting this alien fruit made him feel connected to the world in a way he could not explain. As they moved deeper into the city, Ethan noticed children playing games that required both intelligence and creativity. Taryn encouraged him to join, and although hesitant at first, Ethan quickly realized that humans had an edge in improvisation. He adapted quickly to the rules, helping a group of alien children solve a puzzle that had stumped them. The aliens watched with fascination as Ethan's human intuition seemed to give him insight beyond the rules. They applauded quietly when the puzzle was solved, and Ethan felt a small thrill at being understood without words. Later, Taryn led Ethan to the Royal Palace Gardens, a sprawling area filled with plants that shimmered under the sun and water features that twisted in intricate patterns. The gardens were a place of both beauty and learning. Ethan walked slowly, absorbing the sights, and noticed how even the smallest details had meaning. Patterns in the plants indicated social connections, while the flow of water represented time and history. He realized that the aliens experienced the world in ways humans often ignored. Every action, every gesture carried significance, and understanding it required patience and attention. Ethan's thoughts wandered to Leora. He had seen her only briefly the previous day, but her presence lingered in his mind. She had a way of observing without judgment, of listening without interrupting, that made him feel seen. As he walked through the gardens, he spotted her among the flowers, tending to a small, glowing plant. She looked up and smiled when she saw him, and he felt a warmth he could not explain. They spoke quietly, exchanging observations about the plants, the city, and the celebration. Ethan found himself opening up, sharing details about his life on Earth and his hopes for the future. The conversation was interrupted when Taryn approached, gesturing for Ethan to follow. They were invited to witness a training exercise held for young members of the royal court. Ethan watched as the Zitherans practiced skills that combined physical agility with mental acuity. The exercises were beautiful to watch, movements flowing like water and light. Ethan could not help but admire their discipline and grace, but he also noticed the subtle ways humans differed. He instinctively tried techniques that the aliens had not considered, using problem-solving and creativity in ways that surprised even him. During one exercise, a challenge required participants to navigate a complex obstacle using only intuition and quick thinking. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. He analyzed the patterns quickly and made decisions on instinct, moving in ways that were unorthodox for the aliens. To his amazement, he succeeded. Taryn clapped, and even some of the young trainees nodded in respect. Ethan felt a strange sense of pride, realizing that his humanity was not a limitation on this alien world, but rather something that made him unique as the day continued. Ethan observed the rituals and social interactions of the court. He noticed that respect and honor were central to Zitharan culture. Every action, from the smallest gesture to formal ceremonies, was performed with care. Ethan tried to mirror these customs, learning how to bow, how to speak with proper etiquette, and how to show deference without losing his sense of self. The aliens seemed to notice his efforts, responding with patience and quiet approval. For the first time, Ethan felt that he truly belonged. Even in this strange world, in the afternoon, Taryn took Ethan to a library unlike any he had seen. The shelves glowed softly, and the books seemed to float gently in the air. Information was displayed not only in text but in holographic images that moved and shifted with the story. Ethan ran his fingers over the pages, feeling the energy of the knowledge within. He learned about the history of Zithra, its people, and their traditions. He discovered how their society had survived challenges and evolved over time, always maintaining balance between technology, nature, and culture, while exploring the library. Ethan found a quiet corner where he could think and reflect. He considered how humans often underestimated themselves when compared to advanced civilizations. Here, in Zathera, he realized that human traits like empathy, creativity, and adaptability were valued in ways he had never imagined. It gave him confidence, a sense of purpose. He knew that he could contribute something meaningful, even in a world so different from his own. As evening approached, Ethan and Taryn returned to the palace. The city lights shimmered like stars, reflecting in the streams and gardens. Ethan felt a calm excitement. He had experienced so much in just one day, yet he sensed that this was only the beginning. Leora met him again, this time joining him for a walk along the palace walls. They spoke about their respective worlds, sharing stories and dreams. Ethan was struck by her curiosity and openness, qualities that mirrored his own. The night grew quiet, and the sounds of the city softened. Ethan reflected on the day, realizing that he had begun to form connections that went beyond simple observation. He was not just a visitor. He was becoming part of the rhythm of Zithran life. The aliens had shown him respect, acknowledged his unique abilities, and treated him as an equal in subtle ways. The idea that humans could make a difference here was no longer abstract. It was tangible. Before retiring for the night, Ethan took one last walk in the gardens. The glowing plants seemed to respond to his presence, as if acknowledging his growing understanding of their world. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the experiences, the lessons, and the people he had met. The city was alive with energy, but there was a calmness beneath it, a harmony that humans often struggled to achieve. As he returned to his room, Ethan thought about Leora again. He could not ignore the connection that was forming between them. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. He realized that this journey was no longer just about observation or curiosity. It was becoming personal. The princess was not just a figure of fascination, but someone he genuinely cared about. Ethan lay in bed, staring at the softly glowing walls. His mind replayed the events of the day, the laughter of the children, the elegance of the training exercises, the beauty of the gardens. In the quiet moments with Leora, he understood that being human gave him something special, a way of seeing the world that complemented the alien perspective. He felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation, knowing that tomorrow would bring new experiences and new challenges. And deep down, he knew that his journey on Zathera was far from over. The next morning, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and unease. He had grown comfortable with Zethra and its people, but today promised something unexpected. Taryn arrived with a serious expression, hinting that the day would not be as simple as walking through gardens and observing rituals. Ethan followed him through the bustling city streets, noticing how the Zitherans began to prepare for a new set of events that seemed more formal and significant. As they entered the palace, Ethan realized that the court was gathering for an unusual assembly. The King Orion sat upon his throne, regal and composed, as advisors and nobles filled the hall. Ethan was guided to a place of honor, near the front, which made him feel both proud and nervous. He had no idea why he had been given such a prominent position, but he quickly sensed that today's events might involve him in ways he could not predict. The ceremony began with the king speaking about honor, courage, and the importance of connections between beings, regardless of their origin. His words were powerful, and Ethan felt a sense of awe. The king's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer than expected, and Ethan's stomach tightened. It was unusual to be singled out in such a formal setting, and he wondered what had brought this attention. After the speech, the king addressed Ethan directly. "You have observed our ways with respect and curiosity," he said. "You have shown courage and insight in ways that are rare among visitors. Your actions have impressed not only the court, but my daughter as well." Ethan's heart raced. He had not expected such recognition, and he struggled to respond, unsure whether to bow, nod, or speak. The king smiled, as if anticipating his confusion. Leora stepped forward, her expression calm yet warm. "Ethan," she said softly. "Your presence here has been unlike any other humans. You approach our customs with respect, and yet with creativity, showing a way of thinking that is unique. I have enjoyed your company, and I believe others have as well." Ethan felt a mixture of embarrassment and pride. Her words were kind, but he had never imagined that his simple curiosity and honesty would mean so much to her. Then the king made a statement that caught Ethan completely off guard. "I believe that a union between our worlds may be strengthened through bonds of trust and understanding. Ethan, I propose that you consider a path that no visitor has ever taken before." Ethan's mind raced. He had come to observe a wedding, not to be included in matters of state or royal proposa. Else, he tried to speak, but the words faltered in his throat. Leora's gentle smile encouraged him to listen first. To understand what was being suggested, it soon became clear that the king was hinting at a possibility of marriage between Ethan and Leora. At first, it seemed impossible, absurd even. Ethan was a visitor from another world, with no knowledge of Zithran society beyond what he had observed. But as he looked at Leora, he realized that her interest in him was genuine. She was not testing him or playing games. She was intrigued by his humanity and his ability to see the world differently. Ethan felt a mixture of fear, excitement, and disbelief. Over the next few hours, Ethan was led through discussions and explanations. Advisors spoke of alliances and the benefits of uniting two species through a personal bond. Terran quietly guided him, explaining customs and expectations. Ethan realized that, while the proposal carried political weight, it was also deeply personal for Leora. She wanted to know him as a person, not just as a guest or a tool for diplomacy. That thought gave him courage. Though the path ahead still felt daunting, Ethan spent time with Leora in private. Walking through the palace gardens once more, they spoke honestly, sharing thoughts, fears, and hopes. Leora expressed her fascination with human resilience, creativity, and the way Ethan approached challenges with empathy and understanding. Ethan shared stories of his life on Earth, his family, and his small town. The exchange was quiet and intimate, allowing them both to see each other beyond the formalities and expectations of the court. By afternoon, Ethan was invited to meet with a council of elders who explained Zithran marriage traditions. They emphasized that the union was not just a personal decision, but a symbol of trust and cooperation between two civilizations. Ethan listened carefully, realizing that the challenges of this marriage would not only involve adapting to a new culture, but also representing humans in a way that could impact future relations. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, yet he felt a sense of purpose. He understood that humanity's unique traits could be valuable in bridging worlds. To test his suitability, Ethan was asked to participate in a series of trials that would demonstrate his understanding, courage, and loyalty. The first trial involved navigating a complex maze infused with light and energy patterns that reacted to participants' thoughts and movements. Ethan had never encountered anything like it, but he approached it with calm determination. He relied on intuition, observation, and patience. Moving through the maze while respecting the subtle cues of the environment, by the end, he emerged successfully, earning nods of approval from the elders. The second trial was a test of empathy and judgment. Ethan was presented with scenarios involving young Zitherans making difficult decisions that affected their community. He was asked to offer guidance without imposing his perspective. He listened, considered, and offered advice that balanced understanding with insight. The elders were impressed by his ability to combine human intuition with careful consideration of alien culture. Ethan felt relief and pride. His humanity was being recognized as a strength rather than a limitation. During a brief rest, Leora joined him, offering encouragement and sharing her own experiences with these traditions. She spoke of the responsibilities she would carry as a princess and the importance of choosing a partner who could understand both her world and the human perspective. Ethan listened intently, realizing that Leora's strength was not only in her position, but in her thoughtfulness and willingness to see him as an equal. The conversation deepened his respect and admiration for her. The final trial was a demonstration of collaboration. Ethan and Leora were asked to complete a complex task that required both human creativity and Zithran precision. They worked together, learning each other's methods, adjusting, and trusting one another. The task was not easy, but through communication and teamwork, they succeeded. The court observed in quiet amazement, witnessing a partnership that transcended species. Ethan felt a profound sense of connection, realizing that he and Leora complemented each other in ways that were both personal and symbolic. After the trials, the king and the elders convened to discuss the results. Ethan was asked to speak about his experience, to express his understanding of the responsibility and the significance of the potential union. He spoke honestly, acknowledging the challenges and expressing his respect for Zithran culture. He shared his admiration for Leora, his belief in the value of human traits, and his commitment to learning and growing. The hall was silent for a moment, then filled with quiet nods and murmurs of approval. Ethan spent the evening reflecting on the events of the day. He walked through the palace corridors, observing the architecture and the soft glow of the lights. Every corner of Zithra seemed alive, filled with history and meaning. He thought about how far he had come from a visitor, unsure and hesitant, to someone being considered for a role of significance in an alien society. The realization was both thrilling and overwhelming. Leora found him again. They walked together in the gardens, discussing what they had learned and how they felt about the trials. Ethan expressed his fears and excitement, and Leora shared her own hopes for the future. The conversation was honest, intimate, and filled with understanding. Ethan realized that he had grown not just in skill and knowledge, but in confidence and perspective. He saw how human qualities, curiosity, empathy, adaptability, were not just valuable, but essential in this context. As night fell, the city shimmered with lights, and the sounds of distant celebrations filled the air. Ethan and Leora paused to watch the glow, feeling a sense of peace and anticipation. Ethan understood that the proposal from the king was more than a formality. It was an invitation to embrace a new life, a life that required courage, respect, and trust. He felt ready, knowing that he could honor both his humanity and the Zithran way of life, before retiring to his chamber. Ethan spent a quiet moment reflecting on the journey so far. He had arrived as a visitor, expecting only to observe. But now he faced a future that could reshape both his life and the relationship between two worlds. The thought was daunting, yet he felt a surge of determination. He understood that being human had given him qualities that were rare and valuable, and that these traits could make a difference here. As he lay down, he felt a sense of purpose and excitement for the days to come. Knowing that the path ahead was uncertain, challenging, and full of possibility, Ethan awoke feeling a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness. Today marked the beginning of a series of trials meant to test his understanding, courage, and readiness for a life among the Zithrans. Terran arrived promptly, carrying messages and instructions from the royal court. He explained that the trials would challenge Ethan in ways both physical and mental, designed not to intimidate but to reveal character, wisdom, and empathy. The first trial took place in an expansive arena, surrounded by bioluminescent plants that reacted to movement and sound. Ethan watched as young Zithrans demonstrated agility and control over their environment. The trial required him to navigate a series of shifting obstacles while remaining mindful of the delicate ecosystem around him. At first, the obstacles seemed impossible, with light patterns that changed unpredictably and surfaces that moved beneath his feet. Ethan focused, observing carefully, learning how the environment responded to his presence. Step by step, he adapted, combining his intuition with careful attention. By the end, he completed the trial without damaging a single plant or misstepping, earning nods of respect from the observers. Next came a challenge of strategy and problem-solving. Ethan was given a series of puzzles involving ancient Zithran history and cultural symbols. The puzzles required logic, creativity, and insight into values the aliens held dear. Ethan relied on his human perspective, approaching the problems in ways the Zithrans had not considered. Some solutions surprised the elders, demonstrating that thinking differently could lead to new insights. Ethan realized that his humanity, His ability to imagine, improvise, and empathize was a strength. The applause that followed was quiet but meaningful, and Ethan felt pride in knowing he had contributed something unique. After a short rest, the next trial focused on empathy and communication. Ethan was asked to resolve conflicts between younger Zitherans in simulated situations. The children faced dilemmas that tested loyalty, honesty, and social responsibility. Ethan listened carefully, offering guidance without imposing his own values, helping each child consider the needs of others and the consequences of their choices. The elders watched closely, impressed by his ability to balance understanding with wisdom. Ethan realized that human empathy, his capacity to connect with others, was as valuable here as any skill or knowledge. During a break, Leora appeared, her presence comforting and grounding. She shared insights about the culture and offered encouragement, emphasizing that the trials were not meant to intimidate him, but to help him grow. Ethan appreciated her guidance, recognizing that she was not only observing but actively supporting him. Their conversations flowed naturally, covering topics from the practical to the personal. Ethan found himself opening up about his fears, his hopes, and the responsibilities he imagined for the future. Leora listened without judgment, a quality that strengthened his trust and deepened their bond. The fourth trial was the most physically demanding yet. Ethan had to navigate a complex terrain that included climbing, balancing, and precise timing. The environment reacted dynamically, challenging him to stay aware and adapt. Despite initial hesitation, he approached the task with focus and determination. Each movement required careful thought, but Ethan discovered a rhythm that allowed him to move with confidence. The trial ended successfully, and Ethan felt exhilaration not from competition, but from understanding and integrating with the environment. He had learned to trust his instincts and to rely on both observation and intuition. Afterward, Ethan joined Leora in a quiet garden. They walked among plants that glowed softly in the evening light, discussing the trials and reflecting on what they had learned. Ethan spoke of the human capacity to adapt, to see patterns where others might not, and to connect deeply with others through empathy and understanding. Leora listened intently, sharing her own experiences and explaining how Zitharan society valued these traits in unexpected ways. Their conversation was unhurried, filled with mutual respect, and left Ethan feeling encouraged and confident. Later, the final trial combined all the skills Ethan had learned: agility, strategy, empathy, and collaboration. He was paired with Leora for a complex task that required both human creativity and Zitharan precision. The task involved constructing a structure that balanced energy, light, and harmony with the environment. Ethan and Leora worked together, learning from each other and adapting to challenges in real time. The exercise demanded patience, communication, and trust. By the end, the structure was completed flawlessly, demonstrating that their strengths complemented each other. In remarkable ways, the elders convened to assess Ethan's performance. They praised his courage, insight, and respect for Zitharan culture. Ethan was humbled by their words, realizing that his efforts had been meaningful not only to him but to the society he was beginning to join. The recognition was subtle but powerful, affirming that humans could offer something unique, even in a world so different from Earth. As night fell, the palace became quiet. Ethan walked with Leora through the gardens, reflecting on the experiences of the day. The bioluminescent plants glowed gently, responding to their presence. Ethan felt a profound connection to Zithara, recognizing that the trials had not only tested him but had also taught him about the values, beauty, and complexity of this world. Leora shared her own reflections, emphasizing the importance of trust, communication, and understanding. Their bond grew stronger with each conversation. Built on mutual respect and shared experiences, Ethan spent the next few hours preparing for discussions with the king and the elders about the significance of his journey. He wanted to express his understanding of Zitharan culture, his respect for their traditions, and his recognition of the responsibilities. Involved in a potential union with Leora, he thought carefully about what he wanted to convey, balancing humility with confidence and sincerity with respect. When the meeting began, he spoke openly, sharing his reflections on the trials, the lessons learned, and his appreciation for the wisdom and guidance he had received. The elders nodded, acknowledging the depth of his understanding. Afterward, Ethan returned to the gardens alone for a quiet moment of reflection. The city lights shimmered in the distance, and the soft hum of the environment created a sense of calm. He considered how far he had come from an observer, uncertain and hesitant, to someone actively engaged in the life and culture of Zithera. The trials had tested him in every way, yet they had also revealed the value of his human qualities: curiosity, empathy, creativity, and adaptability. Ethan felt a sense of pride and belonging that he had never experienced before. Leora joined him once more, her presence warm and reassuring. They spoke of the future, the possibilities, and the responsibilities that lay ahead. Ethan expressed his commitment to learning and growing, not only for himself but for the trust and relationship he shared with Leora. Their conversation was quiet, intimate, and filled with understanding, reinforcing the connection that had been forming since his arrival. Ethan realized that this bond was becoming central to his experience on Zithera, source of strength and motivation. As the night deepened, Ethan felt a sense of peace. He had faced challenges, learned new ways of thinking, and formed meaningful connections with both Leora and the Zitheran society. He understood that being human had given him tools that were valuable in this world, and that he could contribute in ways that were both personal and symbolic. The trials had not only tested his abilities, but had also shown him the potential for growth, understanding, and unity between their worlds. Before resting, Ethan walked through the palace corridors one last time. Observing the subtle glow of the architecture and the soft murmur of the city, he reflected on the lessons of the day, the importance of empathy, the value of creativity, and the strength found in mutual respect. He felt gratitude for the guidance of Terran, the encouragement of Leora, and the recognition of the elders. Ethan knew that the path ahead would be challenging, but he felt prepared, confident in his ability to navigate this new life with integrity and respect. Ethan returned to his chamber, feeling a sense of fulfillment and anticipation. He lay down, thinking about the journey so far and the possibilities that lay ahead. The trials had shown him that humans could make a difference, even in a world so alien. They had tested his abilities, revealed his strengths, and strengthened his bond with Leora. As he drifted into sleep, Ethan felt a quiet certainty that he was no longer just a visitor. He was becoming a part of Zithera, ready to face the challenges and embrace the opportunities that the future held. The day of the ceremony had arrived, and Ethan felt a mix of nervousness and excitement unlike anything he had ever experienced. The palace was alive with activity, citizens moving gracefully through the halls, preparing decorations and ceremonial elements for the event. Soft lights floated in the air, illuminating the intricate architecture, and gentle music filled the background, blending seamlessly with the natural sounds of the city. Ethan took a deep breath, realizing that this day would mark a turning point not only in his life, but also in the relationship between humans and Zitherans. He dressed in ceremonial attire, provided by the royal family, garments that shimmered softly in the light and seemed to move with him. Terran assisted him, offering guidance on posture, gestures, and etiquette. Ethan felt the weight of expectation, but also a growing sense of confidence. He had learned much from his time on Zithera, and he understood that today would require both courage and composure. As he prepared, he thought about the trials, the lessons, and the bonds he had formed with Leora. Each memory strengthened his resolve. When Ethan entered the grand hall, he was met with quiet admiration from the assembled guests. Aliens of all ages, colors, and forms filled the space, observing the ceremony with reverence. The air was filled with a sense of anticipation and joy, and Ethan felt a deep connection to the people around him. He moved carefully, following the customs Terran had taught him, bowing and acknowledging those who offered greetings. The aliens responded warmly. Recognizing his efforts and sincerity, Leora appeared at the center of the hall, radiant and composed. Her presence filled the room, and Ethan's heart swelled as he approached her. The King Arion stood beside her, offering words of encouragement and blessing. Ethan and Leora exchanged a brief glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They were not just fulfilling a ceremonial role. They were acknowledging a bond built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. The ceremony began with symbolic gestures that represented unity and harmony between their worlds. Ethan followed the guidance of Terran and the elders, moving with care and intention. Each gesture, each word was imbued with meaning. Ethan realized that the ceremony was not simply a formal ritual, but a celebration of the values he had come to admire in Zithran culture: honor, empathy, and collaboration. As he moved through the steps, he felt a sense of alignment, harmony between his humanity and the alien traditions. During the exchange of vows, Ethan spoke with honesty and sincerity. He expressed his admiration for Zithran culture, his respect for their traditions, and his commitment to understanding and growing alongside Leora. He acknowledged the responsibilities they were undertaking, both personally and symbolically, and promised to honor the bond they were forming. Leora's words reflected similar values, emphasizing trust, partnership, and the importance of bridging their worlds with understanding and empathy. The hall was silent for a moment, then filled with soft murmurs of approval and subtle applause. The symbolic exchange of gifts followed. Ethan offered a carefully chosen token from Earth, a simple object representing human creativity, perseverance, and the desire to connect with others. Leora presented a gift from her people, representing their history, values, and the hope for unity between humans and Zitherans. The exchange was more than ceremonial. It was a recognition of mutual respect and the blending of worlds. Ethan felt a profound sense of belonging, realizing that his journey had led to this meaningful moment. As the ceremony continued, music and movement filled the hall. Aliens danced with graceful precision, and Ethan followed as best he could. Guided by Terran and Leora, despite his human limitations, he found joy in participating, and the aliens responded with encouragement and warmth. Leora moved beside him, supporting and guiding him through the steps, their partnership evident to all who observed. Ethan felt a deep sense of connection, not only with Leora but with the entire community around them. The final segment of the ceremony involved a symbolic act of unity. Ethan and Leora worked together to complete a shared task, combining human ingenuity and Zithran harmony. The result was a structure of light and energy, balanced and beautiful, reflecting the partnership between their worlds. The assembly watched in awe, understanding the significance of the act. Ethan felt pride, knowing that their collaboration had created something lasting and meaningful. After the formalities, the celebration continued with feasting and entertainment. Ethan tasted foods he had never imagined, each flavor a testament to the richness of Zithran culture. He watched performances that blended art, music, and movement in ways that reflected the society's values. Leora introduced him to friends and family, explaining his contributions and his growing understanding of their culture. Ethan was humbled by the warmth and acceptance he encountered, realizing that he had become more than a visitor. He was part of their community. Throughout the day, Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From his first arrival as an observer, he had grown to understand and appreciate the complexity and beauty of Zithran society. He had learned to navigate challenges, to communicate across cultural boundaries, to embrace his own humanity as a source of strength. The experiences had shaped him, giving him confidence and a sense of purpose he had never known before. As evening approached, Ethan and Leora found a quiet spot in the palace gardens. The soft glow of bioluminescent plants and the gentle hum of the environment created a serene atmosphere. They spoke about the future, the responsibilities they would share, and the opportunities to strengthen connections between humans and Zitherans. Ethan felt a deep sense of commitment, understanding that their bond represented both personal love and a symbolic bridge between worlds. The night concluded with a final reflection in the Grand Hall, where Ethan was formally recognized by the king and elders for his contributions, courage, and understanding. Their acknowledgement was both subtle and profound, affirming that humanity had a place in their society. Ethan felt a sense of fulfillment and gratitude, knowing that his journey had meaning beyond himself. He had arrived as a visitor, and now he stood as a participant, a partner, and a bridge between worlds. Before retiring for the night, Ethan took a moment alone to reflect on the experiences and lessons of the past days. He considered how human traits curiosity, empathy, adaptability, and creativity had allowed him to connect, learn, and grow in ways he had never imagined. He felt pride in his humanity and gratitude for the opportunities that Zathera had offered. The journey had transformed him, giving him a sense of purpose and belonging that he would carry forward. Leora joined him once more, her presence reassuring and steady. They walked through the gardens, speaking quietly about their hopes and dreams. Ethan shared his vision for how humans and Zitherans could learn from each other, fostering understanding and collaboration. Leora listened attentively, offering her own insights and affirming their shared commitment. The bond between them had grown stronger through trust, shared experiences, and mutual respect. Ethan realized that this connection was not only personal, but symbolic, a living example of unity and understanding. As the night deepened, Ethan felt a sense of completion and anticipation. The journey from visitor to partner had been challenging, enlightening, and transformative. He had faced trials that tested his skills, understanding, and character, yet he had emerged with confidence and purpose. The experiences had shown him the value of human qualities, and he had learned that even in a world vastly different from his own, humans could make a meaningful impact. Ethan and Leora returned to the palace, where the city lights shimmered softly, reflecting the harmony and beauty of Zithera. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for the guidance of Terran, the support of the king and elders, and the encouragement and companionship of Leora. The journey had been extraordinary, and he understood that it was only the beginning of a life filled with new challenges, responsibilities, and possibilities, as he prepared for rest. Ethan reflected on the transformation he had undergone. He had arrived as a curious observer from Earth, unsure of his place and abilities. Now he was a recognized partner in a society far from home, capable of bridging worlds through understanding, empathy, and collaboration. He felt a quiet sense of pride and determination, knowing that his humanity had been both a gift and a key to his success. Finally, Ethan lay down in his chamber, gazing at the softly glowing walls and thinking of the journey ahead. The memories of the trials, the ceremonies, and the bonds he had formed filled him with warmth and purpose. He understood that the path forward would require courage, respect, and continued growth, but he felt ready. He had found a place where his humanity mattered, where he could contribute meaningfully, and where he had formed a bond that transcended worlds. As he drifted into sleep, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Knowing that he was no longer just a visitor, he was a part of Zithera, ready to embrace the future with Leora by his side. Ethan awoke the next morning with a sense of anticipation that was different from before. The wedding had passed, the ceremonies completed, and yet his journey on Zithera was far from over. Now, as a recognized partner of Leora and a guest of the royal family, he felt both responsibility and excitement. He rose from his chamber, stretching as sunlight filtered softly through the glowing walls. Today promised new experiences, not as a visitor, but as someone beginning to find his place in this alien society. Tan arrived promptly to guide Ethan on the morning's activities. Today, they would explore the deeper parts of the city, areas rarely seen by outsiders. The streets were alive with soft shimmering light, and Ethan marveled at how seamlessly nature and technology intertwined. Plants floated effortlessly alongside pathways. Energy streams danced in patterns that seemed both random and perfectly ordered. He took careful steps, observing, learning, and soaking in every detail. Even after days of exploration, Zithera never ceased to amaze him as they moved through the city. Ethan noticed children and citizens going about their routines, moving with a rhythm that reflected the harmony of their society. He tried to understand their interactions, their gestures, and the subtle signals that conveyed respect, playfulness, or urgency. Terran explained the nuances, and Ethan listened carefully, realizing that communication here extended beyond words. Humans had to rely on observation, empathy, and intuition to truly connect, and he found himself practicing all three. Their journey led to the council hall. where Ethan would meet a group of elders and scholars to discuss future initiatives bridging human and Zitharan cultures. Ethan felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He had never imagined that his observations and experiences could carry this level of importance. The council welcomed him warmly, curious to hear his perspective. He spoke honestly, sharing insights from Earth, emphasizing human ingenuity, adaptability, and empathy. The elders listened intently, asking questions and noting his suggestions. Ethan realized that his ideas were valued, a humbling and empowering feeling. After the meeting, Leora joined him. She led him through a garden courtyard, filled with bioluminescent plants and softly flowing streams. They spoke quietly about their shared goals and responsibilities. Ethan felt a deep sense of connection, recognizing that his journey on Zithera was not just personal but meaningful in a larger context. Leora's calm confidence reassured him, and together they discussed ways to merge their cultures without diminishing the beauty of either. The conversation left him thoughtful and inspired, considering the possibilities for collaboration and learning later. Ethan and Leora visited a training facility for young Zitharans. He observed how children were taught not only physical skills, but also critical thinking, empathy, and cooperation. Some of the methods reminded him of practices from Earth, while others were entirely new. He participated in a few exercises, using his human perspective to offer alternative approaches. The instructors watched with curiosity, impressed by his ability to combine human creativity with Zitharan precision. Ethan realized that his contributions could help shape the next generation, blending knowledge from both worlds. As the day continued, Ethan and Leora explored the city's art and history district. The walls of the buildings glowed softly, displaying stories of Zitharan history, achievements, and legends. Ethan marveled at the creativity and the care with which each story was told. He noticed parallels to human history, recognizing shared themes of courage, perseverance, and curiosity. Leora explained the symbolism behind the designs, teaching Ethan how to interpret the subtle cues embedded in the artwork. He felt a deeper appreciation for the culture and a growing understanding of how art and tradition shaped the values of a society. In the afternoon, Ethan was invited to a council gathering focused on environmental harmony. Zitharans valued balance between their technology and natural world, and Ethan observed demonstrations showing energy management, sustainable building practices, and ways to maintain ecosystems. He asked questions, contributing insights from Earth, and the council engaged in thoughtful dialogue. Ethan began to see that human adaptability and problem-solving could complement Zitharan expertise. He felt proud to be part of these discussions. Knowing that his perspective mattered, during a quiet moment, Leora led Ethan to a terrace overlooking the city. The soft lights of the buildings reflected in the streams below, creating a tapestry of colors and patterns. They spoke of the future, of responsibilities, and of hope. Ethan expressed his desire to continue learning and contributing, not just for himself, but for the trust and partnership they shared. Leora shared her own vision, emphasizing collaboration, empathy, and the importance of creating a harmonious bridge between humans and Zitharans. The conversation deepened their connection, reinforcing the trust and understanding that had grown over the past days. As evening approached, Ethan participated in a community gathering where humans and Zitharans shared knowledge, art, and ideas. He demonstrated simple human inventions and ways to solve practical problems, and the aliens responded with curiosity and enthusiasm. In turn, Zitharans shared methods of energy management, design, and cooperation that fascinated him. Ethan realized that even small exchanges could lead to meaningful understanding and collaboration. The gathering highlighted the potential for humans and Zitharans to learn from each other, creating bonds that went beyond ceremony or a tradition. Later, Ethan explored the city's learning archives with Taryn. The archives contained vast collections of knowledge, history, and cultural documentation. Ethan was captivated by the way information was presented, often through interactive, glowing displays that adapted to the observer's curiosity. He studied carefully, taking notes and asking questions. Taryn guided him, explaining subtle cultural and historical references. Ethan felt a growing sense of purpose, recognizing that understanding and sharing knowledge was a crucial part of his role on Zathura. During the night, Ethan and Leora walked through the palace gardens, reflecting on the day. The soft glow of bioluminescent flowers and gentle hum of the environment created a serene atmosphere. They discussed how humans and Zitherans could collaborate to strengthen cultural, educational, and environmental ties. Ethan realized that the journey was ongoing. It was not just about adapting to a new world, but about building a meaningful future together. Leora's guidance and partnership reinforced his confidence and commitment. The next morning, Ethan participated in a ceremony recognizing contributions to cultural exchange. His ideas, efforts, and insights were acknowledged by the king, the elders, and the community. The recognition was subtle, yet profound, affirming that humans could contribute meaningfully even in a world vastly different from their own. Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Understanding that his journey had significance beyond personal growth, it had the potential to shape connections between civilizations. In the afternoon, Ethan worked with Leora on a project integrating human and Zitharan techniques. They collaborated to design a structure that combined human practicality with Zitharan elegance, balancing energy, aesthetics, and environmental harmony. The process required patience, creativity, and trust. Together, they experimented, learned from mistakes, and celebrated small successes. Ethan felt exhilarated, realizing that partnership and collaboration could create results greater than either could achieve alone. As the sun set, Ethan and Leora sat quietly in the gardens, watching the city lights shimmer and reflect in the streams. They spoke of their shared experiences, their growing understanding, and the responsibilities that lay ahead. Ethan felt a sense of connection, not only to Leora, but to the entire community of Zithara. He understood that his human traits, sympathy, creativity, adaptability, were valued and respected, and he felt inspired to continue contributing. Before retiring for the night, Ethan reflected on the past days. He had arrived as a visitor, curious and cautious, and had grown to become an active participant in Zitharan society. He had faced trials, learned new ways of thinking, and formed meaningful connections. His journey had shown him that humanity had unique qualities that could bridge worlds, and he felt a profound sense of purpose as he lay down, the soft glow of the chamber walls comforting him. Ethan realized that his story on Zithra was just beginning, full of challenges, opportunities, and the promise of new discoveries with Leora by his side.